The water is still. Too still. That's what the locals told him. But Steve Irwin doesn't hear warnings the way normal people do. He hears them like someone hears a distant song, registering somewhere in the back of his mind, but not stopping his feet. The Australian sun beats down on the Kakadu wetlands like a hammer on anvil. It's January 2004. The mud beneath his bare feet is warm, almost living. His crew is positioned 50 meters back, cameras rolling, sweat pooling in every crease of their bodies. This is what they came for. This is what Steve always does. He's looking for something specific today. Something that makes most men, sensible men, men with life insurance policies and retirement plans, turn around and go home. He's looking for a saltwater crocodile. Not just any salty, a big one. The kind that has killed people. The kind that looks at a human being the way you might look at a potato chip. Casually, without malice, but with absolute intention to consume. Steve moves forward. His shorts are khaki, worn thin from years of work. His shirt is the same, faded, stained with sweat and mud and blood from 100 encounters. He moves barefoot because shoes lie to your feet. That's what he always says. They separate you from the earth, from the animal's world, from understanding where you really are. And right now, he needs to know exactly where he is. The camera operator named Derek watches through the viewfinder. He's been with Steve for 3 years. He's seen things that would make most people quit, refuse to come back, take a job in an office where the most dangerous thing is the coffee. But Derek keeps coming back because he believes in what Steve is doing. Because he sees every single day that Steve isn't reckless. He's something else. Something harder to define. He's controlled chaos. He's danger married to purpose. Steve stops. His hand goes up. The crew stops. Everything stops. That's the signal. That's Steve saying something is happening. Watch. Learn. Pray if you pray. The water ripples, not from wind, from something beneath. Something big. Steve's eyes don't move from that ripple. His breathing doesn't change. His heart rate, if you could monitor it, would be steady. Calm. This is where Steve is most alive. This is where most people would be most terrified. But fear and excitement are neighbors that share a wall, and Steve learned a long time ago which side of that wall he lives on. Beautiful, he whispers. The microphone picks it up perfectly. Absolute beauty. That's a big salty, probably 14, maybe 15 feet. See how the water moves? That's not a small croc. That's an apex predator. That's an animal that has ruled this water for probably 30, 40 years. This is his domain. We're visitors here, and he's letting us know it. The crocodile surfaces. Eyes first, cold. Ancient. The eyes of a creature that has survived 200 million years of evolution, that has watched dinosaurs come and go, that has refined the art of killing to absolute perfection. Then the snout emerges. Teeth like railroad spikes. The jaw muscles ripple beneath the scarred hide. This crocodile has fought. Many times, many opponents. It has scars from other crocs, from prey that fought back, from decades of existence in a world where mercy is a luxury item. Steve moves closer, not fast, not slow, methodical, purposeful. Every step calculated to not trigger the strike response. Crocodiles have a strike zone. Get in it and you're done. You don't get a second chance. You don't get a do-over. You get death, fast and absolute. Steve knows this. He's known it since he was 5 years old, watching his father catch snakes in their backyard. He knows it better than he knows how to breathe. This is the most dangerous animal in Australia, Steve says, his voice steady, almost reverent. This saltwater crocodile can grow up to 20 feet. They're faster than you think. People look at something that weighs a ton and moves like molasses and they think they're safe. But I've seen these animals move like lightning when they want to. I've seen them accelerate from 0 to 40 kilometers per hour in less than a second. And their bite force? He pauses. About 16,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. That's enough to crush bone like it's a cracker. The crocodile is watching him now, not the random observation of an animal noticing movement. The focused, intentional watching of a predator assessing prey. The crocodile recognizes that Steve is different, that he's not running, that he's not showing the fear response that triggers the ancient predatory drive. Steve is doing something almost impossible. He's showing respect. And somehow, the crocodile senses that. Steve gets closer. 20 feet, 15 feet. The sun is so hot now that the air seems to shimmer. Derek is filming, but he's also holding his breath. Literally holding his breath. Because he knows what Steve is about to do. He's done it before, but it doesn't get easier to watch. Steve crouches down. His bare feet are in the mud, in the water now, just inches from the crocodile's reach. If the crocodile wanted to take him right now, it could. One strike, one violent rotation of its body, and Steve would be pulled underwater, drowned, dismembered, consumed. This isn't theory. This is fact. This is what saltwater crocodiles do. Notice the hide, Steve says, and he reaches out. His hand, his bare human hand, touches the crocodile's head. The scales are rough, ancient, like stone that has been in the sun for 1,000 years. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is armor. Evolution perfected. This animal doesn't need to change because it's already perfect for what it does. 8 seconds. That's how long Steve's hand stays on the crocodile's head. 8 seconds where Derek's hands are shaking so badly he almost drops the camera. 8 seconds where the crew is frozen, knowing that any second now, everything could change. 8 seconds where the crocodile could move, could turn its head, could open that mouth, and Steve would be gone. But it doesn't. The crocodile is still. And Steve, his hand still touching the animal's skull, is still. And in that moment, something passes between them. Not words, not communication in any way that human language can describe, but an understanding, a recognition. Steve sees the crocodile as it truly is, not as a monster, not as a target, not as a creature to be feared and destroyed, but as a being of perfect design, existing in a world that has less and less room for it every day. And the crocodile somehow understands that this human sees it that way. Steve removes his hand slowly, carefully. His movements are deliberate, respectful. The movements of someone in a sacred space, in the presence of something holy. He backs away, still crouched, still in the water, still within striking distance, but moving with the kind of grace that suggests he's not afraid, but reverent. When he finally stands, when he finally moves back to shallow water, when he finally breaks the connection, he turns to the camera. And his face is different now. Not the face of someone who has conquered something. The face of someone who has been granted a privilege. A moment in the presence of perfection. That, Steve says, and his voice is thick with emotion, thick with something that transcends the performative aspect of television, thick with genuine awe. That is why we protect these animals. That is why we need these places. Because if we lose the saltwater crocodile, if we lose the wetlands, we lose something that can't be replaced. We lose a piece of our planet's soul. Derek lowers the camera. His hands are still shaking. He's been doing this for 3 years, and every time Steve does something like this, every time he walks into territory that would kill a normal person, Derek asks himself if this is the day. Is this the day Steve doesn't come back? Is this the day the animal decides that this human is prey? Is this the day the famous Steve Irwin becomes just another statistic? Just another body? Just another story about taking risks too far? Steve walks back to shore. The crocodile sinks beneath the water, disappearing back into its domain, back into the murk where it's invisible and invincible. Steve's eyes are still on the water long after the crocodile is gone, as if he can still see it, still sense it, still feel the connection that existed for those 8 seconds. That night, back at camp, Steve sits by the fire. The crew is quiet around him. They always are after moments like this. There's something about witnessing a man dance with death, about seeing someone choose reverence over fear. That silences people. That makes them think about their own lives, their own choices, their own reasons for being alive. Steve pokes at the fire with a stick. Sparks fly up into the darkness like tiny stars being born and dying in seconds. The Australian bush is loud around them. Insects, nightbirds, unseen animals moving through the darkness. This is Steve's world. This is where he's most comfortable. This is where he makes sense. "You scared?" Derek asks. It's a simple question, but they both know it contains multitudes. Steve doesn't answer immediately. He watches the fire burn. The flames are orange and red and yellow, dancing like the crocodile danced in the water, like Steve danced with death today, like everything alive dances when it's caught between survival and destruction. "Terrified," Steve finally says, and then he smiles. Every single time. But that's the point, isn't it? That's why it matters. If there's no fear, there's no respect. If there's no danger, there's no real connection. I look at that crocodile and I'm terrified. But I'm also grateful. Grateful that it exists. Grateful that it let me touch it. Grateful that for those 8 seconds we weren't predator and prey. We were just two creatures recognizing each other. He looks at Derek directly now. That crocodile is living on borrowed time. In 30 years, maybe 50, animals like that won't exist. Not because they're not perfect, but because we're destroying their home. We're taking away the wetlands, the forests, the wild places. And when we do that, we don't just lose the animals. We lose ourselves. We lose the part of us that's wild, that's connected to something bigger than shopping malls and suburbs and 9-to-5 jobs. Derek nods. He understands. This is why he keeps coming back. Not for the danger, not even for the television ratings that make Steve's show one of the most watched programs in the world. But because he believes, like Steve believes, that this matters. That showing people the true nature of these animals, that helping them see the crocodile not as a monster but as a masterpiece of evolution, that might change something. That might make someone somewhere choose to protect instead of destroy. Steve throws his stick into the fire. It catches immediately, flames consuming it, transforming it from wood into light into ash. Everything returns to elements eventually. Everything goes back to the earth. "You know what's incredible?" Steve says, and there's that tone in his voice again, that childlike wonder that makes him Steve Irwin and not just another TV personality. That crocodile has been alive for maybe 40 years. It's seen this country change, seen humans take more and more of its territory, and it's still here, still perfect, still beautiful, still deadly, still alive. He pauses, and I got to touch it. I got to feel the scales under my hand. I got to look into its eyes and see millions of years of evolution staring back at me. How many people get that? How many people get to dance with death and walk away not just alive, but changed? The next morning, the crew packs up. The footage from the previous day is already being edited by the studio team back in Australia. Within weeks, it will air. Within months, it will be viewed by millions of people around the world. Within years, it will be replayed, referenced, remembered as one of the defining moments of Steve Irwin's career. The day he danced with a 15-foot saltwater crocodile and lived to tell the story. But standing in the early morning light, as the Australian heat begins to build again, Steve doesn't think about viewership numbers or cultural impact or legacy. He thinks about the crocodile. He thinks about that moment where his hand touched its head. He thinks about the 8 seconds where he wasn't performing for television, wasn't thinking about his audience, wasn't thinking about anything except the absolute, perfect presence of another living being. He looks back at the water one more time. The crocodile is out there somewhere in the murk and mud, going about its ancient business, unaware that it changed something in a human man, unaware that it gave him something he'll carry for the rest of his life. The knowledge that death is not the opposite of life. Death is what makes life precious. The danger is what makes the moment real. "See you later, mate," Steve says quietly, speaking directly to the crocodile even though it can't hear him, even though it has no way of understanding human speech or human gratitude. "Thank you for the dance." The camera is still rolling. Derek caught it all. And when it airs, when millions of people see Steve Irwin walk away from that crocodile, when they watch him back away with grace and reverence instead of fear and arrogance, something shifts in them too. Not all of them. Not most of them. But some. Some of them will look at the natural world differently after that. Some of them will see danger not as something to destroy, but as something to understand. Some of them will realize that the most powerful animals on Earth aren't the ones that can kill you fastest. They're the ones that can make you see the world in a new way. They're the ones that can teach you something about yourself just by existing. That's the real power of the dance with death. Not the danger, not the spectacle, but the transformation. The moment where you realize that fear and reverence are the same emotion, viewed from different angles. That danger and beauty are two names for the same thing. That death, in its perfect inevitability, is what makes life worth living. And Steve Irwin knew this better than anyone. He lived in that space between life and death every single day. And he died there too, eventually. Not in a wetland with a crocodile, but in the open ocean with a stingray barb through his heart. Still dancing. Still in the presence of perfection. Still choosing reverence over fear. But that's a different story. For now, it's just 8 seconds. 8 seconds where a man and a monster recognized each other. 8 seconds that changed everything. 8 seconds that proved, once and for all, that the greatest courage is not the absence of fear. It's the presence of respect.